Welcome to the Pacey Performance Podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Head of Strength and Conditioning at Northants County Cricket, David Sutton. Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 49 of the Pacey Performance Podcast. So today we've got David Sutton on the phone. So a couple of weeks ago I saw David speak at the Performance Forum in Manchester with Darren Roberts, and it really changed my perspective on what cricket is. So we discuss all things cricket and all things Northamptonshire in this episode with David. So we also discuss internships, because he's got from my experience, quite a unique perspective on interns and internships. We also discuss demands of the game, specifically looking at fast bowlers, and we also discuss how he deals with such a hectic schedule in the cricket season. So today, the sponsor for the podcast is again Train with Push, makers of the Push Band. So just to remind you, you can get 10% off if you are a US listener if you go to trainwithpush.com and put in Pacey Perform 10 in the redeem code box, and that'll get you 10% off a push band. If you're a UK listener, go to strengthandconditioneducation.com and in the redeem code box put Pacey Perform 10, and that will get you £10 off a push band. So this last week has seen me use the push band to create a bit of a competitive environment within the gym and the group that I'm working with. Just with the instant feedback and the whiteboard, just writing the velocities of each lift on the whiteboard creates a great bit of competition. So I definitely encourage you to do that when you're trying out the push band. So we're coming up to episode 50 of the Pacey Performance Podcast next week. So I just encourage you, if you are enjoying what you've been hearing over the last 18 months and 50 episodes, and you do listen on iTunes, get over to iTunes and leave an honest rating and review, and that would be really appreciated. There's also a sign-up box on paceyperformance.co.uk on the right-hand side. Put your email address in there and you can get yourself added to the Pacey Performance mailing list, and that will be a monthly newsletter going out shortly. You can also follow me on Twitter at Pacey Perform and like me on Facebook at Pacey Performance. And you can check out all previous episodes of the podcast at paceyperformance.co.uk, and all links and resources mentioned in this episode at paceyperformance.co.uk/49. And I will speak to you after the interview with David. Hope you enjoy it. Right, hi guys, welcome to the Pacey Performance Podcast. So today we've got David Sutton, who is the Head of Strength and Conditioning at Northants County Cricket. So welcome to the podcast, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Glad we could fit it into the schedule somehow.
Somehow. So do you want to give us a bit of a background on yourself, your education, and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, so there's a lot of coaches, I guess I'm a bit of a failed athlete, although I try my best. This is my 15th sport that I've worked in at the elite or professional level, which I guess means that I've been sacked from 14 sports. But, I've been fortunate enough to have a very varied background. Started off in my undergrad dissertation, supported by Middlesbrough Football Club a bit. That was kind of an insight into where sports science was going. And then from that point, there's a lot of guys, I guess I started off working in the gym because I wanted to, train people, but there wasn't really a route to that. I was a founder member of the UKSCA in 2004.
Congratulations.
Back then there was 40 people at the first conference, and now there's 500 plus in a decade, which is just insane. And there wasn't really any internships or advertised routes into fitness coaching, S&C, sports science, and you just had to kind of find your own way. My first GB job was with the windsurfing. Did the Worlds in 2004 as part of that, and then just trying to create opportunities ever since. And I've been very lucky to have some great experience in motorsport, and a few different Olympic sports and pro athletes, and involved quite a bit in some complex rehabs as well, and just a very, very wide version of sports that's taken me all around the world. So I've been very lucky, but it's not been by design. It's by just trying to continue to develop myself and develop my experiences.
Mm-hmm. So what's your role entail at the cricket?
So there's almost two separate jobs. During the winter, we have a 5-month block where we can really prepare the players properly. Although that's made more complex because some of the guys will be abroad for part or some of the winter. So then it's just kind of creating a proper strength and conditioning program leading up into the season, where you get some good time to develop some physical qualities and individualise your approach as much as possible. And then in the summer, the cricket schedule is, this is horrendous. We just come off the back of our busiest block where we played 17 days in 21, and we had 2 more days of travel on top of that. And so I travel predominantly with the first team. I stay back occasionally if I need to work on bringing a guy through. But then every day is management of players through the games, through the workload, and just reacting to situations. You've got no idea how much volume each player is going to play during each day, and you're just having to manage that as much as possible. So it's about finding windows and opportunities to maintain and develop where you can, minimise injuries, minimise fatigue. Although you accept that fatigue occurs, and you just try and do your best you can for each player, and then fitting obviously into that with the team's plan. And then in professional sports, in every sport, I think you're always hands on, just helping out. So whether it's carrying bags or helping the skills coaches, or putting down some additional warm-ups, or just spending time with players and coaches and learning what's going on, and trying to find little opportunities to improve and to get better.
Cool.
So it's a very, very mixed role. There's a clear winter, traditional S&C, prepare, develop, and then there's the summer, which is just hold on.
So do you want to give us a bit of an overview? I mean, I know you presented a little bit of this a couple of weeks ago in Manchester, just the demands of cricket players, because, I mean, this is going out to people all over the world, and, I mean, American listeners might not even know what cricket is. Do you just want to give us a little bit of an overview of the demands that a player would go through kind of in season?
Yeah, so our fast bowlers are the number one challenge that we have to manage. In a 4-day, because we have 3 games, different types of games that we'll be playing. So we're playing 4-day cricket, which is 2 innings each, and that can last for 4 full days. That's 6 hours on your feet per day. We have the 1-day cricket, which is 6.5 hours long, getting a whole match done. And then we got the T20s, which are flat out played over 3 hours, and we can, they're really high intensity games. But for the fast bowlers, their delivery stride when they hit the ground just before they release the ball, they're hitting about 8 times body weight. They'll deliver 6 balls in an over, and they might bowl 20, 25 overs in a 4-day game. But then they might then go straight into a 1-day game where they then do another 10 overs. So that's what we have to spend a lot of time looking at, is their workload and their resilience to the demands of that. In a T20 game, they're going to probably do, our bowlers are going to do 30 high-speed sprints a game. They're going to cover a lot more mileage than people think. And then the batsman, it just depends on everyone's fielding as well. I think that's the challenge, is that in the field now in cricket, you have to be strong and you have to be quick and you have to be technically good. And so then everyone's got to be robust enough to field hard for up to 6 hours a day, and to execute their skills repeatedly. It's kind of like, as well, if you just spend a lot of time on your feet, that's just wear and tear anyway. That is fatiguing. If you go shopping with your mum or something, you're pretty tired by the end of it. And if you just throw in a load of high-speed sprints throughout the day and some diving, then you're pretty tired. This is the volume of cricket we play, and getting up the next day and doing the same thing. With the batsmen, it depends on their volume. They may get out second ball, and that might be them for the rest of the day, and they might just then do nothing at all, which means there's an opportunity to fit some training in around the games, because we'll often do strength work or stability work or whatever we need to get done during the game. But then if they've had a high workload the last few weeks, then we might just back them off and do some recovery work. So it just depends, each individual, what they need and what they're doing. Sometimes we've had guys that have batted for 4 hours, 5 hours. That's a lot of concentration and mental fatigue, as well as the time on their feet.
Mm-hmm. So if the guy gets out second ball, you're using the facilities of the opposing team, so you're using the gym and things like that?
Yeah, if you're on the road, most teams are pretty good at sharing facilities. Potentially you can be on the road for 7 or 8 days. So if they get out second ball, and then you give them normally a little bit of time to calm down, and I've got a great group of guys that normally they'll come and find me, and I say, look, I'm ready to do some work now, and they might be say, well, actually the last few games you haven't got many runs, so let's work with one of the coaches, and we'll do some batting work, but we'll also do some conditioning work at the same time and build it in around that. It might be that actually there's an opportunity to get a good strength session in, and we try and get strength sessions in once every 7 or 8 days if we can. That's quite challenging at times.
So how does that, obviously it's so much different in the off season, because you got obviously no games, you got people here, then, everywhere, whether it's England or going over the world. How do you manage that with your players? How much input do you have?
So I've fully able to control their schedule, especially if they're back with us. We'll normally do hard day Monday and Tuesday, off feet recovery day Wednesday, then build up the intensity Thursday, Friday again, and then give them the weekend off. That way we feel that we get 2 periods of adaptation. And it's important because the season's so demanding, and they spend so much time together, 17, 18 days straight sometimes. So giving them a couple of days to spend time with their friends and family, I think is valuable as well. So we'll do normally 4 strength sessions in the 4 days, and just a varied conditioning program depending on what each individual needs and what we think is going to be the most effective way to manage them. Before Christmas, it's 90% physical, and any skill work is built around physical. And then as we go January, February, start bringing all the skills and the cricket specific work in, and you kind of blend in around that. And then get hopefully a pre-season tour in early March, where we can get on our feet and play. There's nothing that the training in the gym can replicate 6 hours of fielding on your feet. So it's good to get away and do that.
So what might a strength session look like in the off-season period for you?
And so it is. I mean, people say, what's your fast bowler program to me? And I've got guys that 5'7", 5'8", hyper mobile that bowl a ball at 85 miles an hour. And I've got guys that are 6'6", 6'7", 9,500 kilos that are doing the same job. And it's about, understanding the demands of the skill that they're applying and the physical demands of that, but then recognising where their own physical attributes are. And if you just said, look, I've got this guy and I'm preparing him for this job, you do it one way, and then if you got a different guy in the same job, you could do it a different way. And it's important to kind of not get too specific on the actual needs, but it's more their individual needs.
So what's the process you go through to identify what their needs are?
So we have a good screening program with the medical guys, and they'll highlight some areas that need to be worked on, and then talking to the coaches, talking to the players, important to understand where they broke down, or where they felt they were lacking power or lacking strength or robustness, and then you get the guy in front of you. And I think that's the best thing, is not to cloud your judgment too much too early, and say, okay, would you look like bilaterally they're really strong, but single leg they're not so strong. So I'm going to emphasise one area specifically. If they're globally weak, we're just going to in the time that we've got, which is still 7-8 week block, okay, how can I be smart enough to get the most out of this player and prepare them most effectively? But each individual is going to adapt differently, and I think that's a critical thing. Even with the team setting, it takes more work, it takes a lot more work, but to individualise the demands for each player is critical. And we have a number of battery of testings. We look at anaerobic shuttle capacity, we look at speed, we look at power, we look at endurance through yo-yo, and then it's about kind of building up a whole picture of the player and saying, okay, right, this is where we think we're going to go, and go with it.
So does every county, from a governing body point of view, every county has to have an S&C coach?
Yeah, every team has one, some have two. We're fortunate that we've got a guy that's my assistant who's mostly responsible for our academy guys, because our academy guys are spread out across the UK. They're not within a small catchment area. And then he fits in and picks up work, especially in the winter, that I need help with. But the big thing is that we're trying as a small club to develop the players that we've got within our system and bring them through. That's a more effective way of doing things, financially better way of doing things. So him managing that side, and then I've got two great interns this year that who have that add a lot to our program and do some really, really great work for us, and that helps as well.
So you mentioned interns there. I know you've got a very strong view on the internship saga. Do you just want to give us your opinion on the whole situation?
I think the first thing to recognise is there's a few industries, sport being one of them, where experience is critical. I think also if you want to work in the media and TV, it's a very similar thing. And if you want to work in some areas of marketing and business, you need experience from that as well. And there's a lot of people graduating with degrees and masters that are all after the same thing. When I started out, I did a sports degree, and then I became aware of this more applied side, and the whole strength and conditioning and applied sports science side. But there was no route. So the thing I did was I knocked on the door everywhere that I could, because I just wanted to get more experience. And if a team, even if it's an amateur team, said, "Oh yeah, can you do an hour's work with us on an evening?" then I was going to take that opportunity for just because I wanted to develop my skills. So at this point, I wasn't looking for a job, because I recognised that the people that were doing the jobs had so much more knowledge than me. It's more that I wanted to become a better coach. The only way I was going to become a better coach was to get more experience. Our interns mostly are master's students, which works quite well for us because they run kind of October to September, which fits well with our winter period. They do quite a bit of work with us then. We're flexible in that we recognise that their academic demands are sometimes peak, so therefore we need to give them some flexibility. But what we do is spend a lot of time giving them their own projects, developing them. We'll only take on people that we believe are going to add to our program. So if someone does something very similar to me, there's no need for it, because they're just replicating what I'm doing. What we want is people to have original thoughts and to come in and have some ideas. And my interns have either gone on to get very good this year. They've either gone on to get down to the last 2 or 3 in interviews, and then they're almost there, and there's 150 people going for these jobs, or they've actually got the job. And that wouldn't have occurred if they hadn't developed their skills. I also think that young strength and conditioning coaches need to recognise that no one owes them anything, and if you're working full-time in professional elite sport, you're ridiculously busy. Rob, I know how hard it is for you to track some people down sometimes, just to get a slot in the diary. So you've got to recognise that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to give up their time to help you because they've done it before themselves. They've gone through that process. But you need to strive to develop yourself as a coach first, so that you become better than everybody else. One of the things we say to our interns is, be so good they can't ignore you. Yeah, and that's how hard you have to work in order to do it. And it's no different to other industries as well. You've got to develop yourself beyond everyone else because there's a finite amount of positions. So we don't pay our interns, but we do offer a big experience, and we take them on CPD and we develop them through a number of projects. And they've got access to our team and our players, and the players help develop them and toughen them up a little bit. And I spend time every year with my interns just talking about stuff, or saying, is there someone else you'd like to meet? Okay, let me introduce you to that person. And that's invaluable. You can't get that, but at the same time I expect them to work very hard. And a lot of the time I'll have an idea and go, look, this is actually really interesting, I wonder whether we should look at this, can you just go and play with this for me and find out? And sometimes it pays off and it's a great idea, and other times they go, actually, do you know what, this is not going to work for these reasons. And that's great, that's added value then to my work, and that's what it's all about. I'm trying to get the team as good as possible, and if they can add value to my work, then that we've done a good job, really. So yeah, and I have an intern dinner at the end of the winter when they've, and there's the other thing as well. My interns are, they're in at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning with me. It's just you got to be pretty motivated to start like that. I have an intern dinner at the end of the year, and we kind of talk about what we've learned from a year, and it's amazing how much they talk about that they never would have even conceived knowing or understanding, and that's quite an enjoyable evening.
So what are you seeing? How are you seeing things differ as time's gone on with interns as they come out of university? Are you seeing kind of trends that they come out, focusing on one aspect of the job or lacking in one certain area? What are you seeing, any trends?
So we had one of our roles, the assistant role, we had 200 applicants in 4 weeks or something. It was absolutely insane, and 100 of those had masters. So, okay, so what's going to be the differentiating factor that's going to help you get through? And the biggest thing was the lack of experience and the lack of variety of experience. And when we interviewed them, the ones that we did interview, we interviewed 10, and the ones that we interviewed, the biggest thing that was lacking was that they didn't have original thought. That they had, at this club we did this. Okay, that's great. What would you do? And is that the more practice you get, whether you're going and working with a hockey team, and then you're working with an 800-meter runner, and then you're working with, some random sport, and then underwater hockey or lacrosse or something that's a bit more.
Sounds like a good game, that.
But yeah, but then you're just having to challenge yourself in different ways. When I got into superbikes and MotoGP, I didn't have a clue. Same with the windsurfing. But I worked hard to listen to what they had to say, and little bits and pieces that I've learned from that sport I can take to another sport. So the two things are just variety of experience, because in professional sport you haven't got time to make the wrong decision very much. Occasionally you get it wrong and then you have to react pretty quickly, but most of the time you have to be on it all the time so that you're minimizing any sort of leakage of performance or risk. It's the same as if you have a truck firm. If you've got 3 of your trucks that are off the road and you haven't got any money to buy any other trucks, then you've got to maximise and getting those trucks back on the road. But in the meantime, your other trucks are doing quite a lot more work than they need to be, because these ones are off the road. It's the same as your players. You can't have a resource that's off the field. So the interns that are coming through and the strength and conditioning coaches that are coming through have to be able to draw upon a number of different experiences to problem solve as fast as they can and as smoothly as they can, and minimize the risk of getting it wrong.
I'm just going to quickly get rid of you on the video if you don't mind. It's nothing personal, just so I can keep the signal. Right, that's better. So perceptions, people's perceptions of cricket is that it's kind of an easy game. It's played by old men and you stop when it rains. How's your perception changed coming into professional cricket from an outsider?
That's a great question. I think, and we've talked a little bit about how your perception has changed just in the time that you've heard me talk about it.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest thing that was a surprise to me was, one, how skillful they actually are, because it is still a high skill sport, and you see that. And then some of the stuff they do in fielding drills and in games is just unbelievable. But then the other thing is that actually how demanding and fatiguing it is, not only from a physical point of view, but from a mental point of view, because of the repeated nature of it, because of the volume of the playing. We're not prepare 6 days, play one, or worst case in football, you may be playing 2 games in 8 days or something. We're playing 7 days in 8 days, and therefore it's the demands of the sport are increasing. The guys hit the ball harder, they run faster, they field harder, they are more creative in how they play the game. There's still a level of transition in that some of the older players have got away with it from their skill level to some extent, or they've come into the more physical preparation periods, later on in their career, and that's fine. That's just the transition of any sport. But I think it's that now it's the back-to-back repeated execution of high intensity skills for such extended periods of time, and how sore and tired they actually are. And it's made me think, actually, when I first came in, I thought, wow, that's an opportunity to do some training, that's an opportunity to do some training. Sometimes it is, but most of the time, actually, it's like, well, what's the best that we can get out of here, and is that going to be a viable option based on their mental fatigue and their physical state?
Mm-hmm. So do you have someone in the camp who kind of specialises in the mental side of things?
So we have a sports psychologist on staff. He's not full-time, but he's with us as much as we need to, and he's very good. And then we have a clinical psychologist as well that visits. And because cricket's such a numbers game, the stats are so heavy, and therefore your performance is assessed continually every single day, and you're often compared to other people. And often the players are on 1 or 2 year contracts, so potentially you can get to 2 months into the season and potentially out of a job in 12 weeks. And that's the reality of professional sport, that there's a lot of pressure on your career, so you have to be optimising what you're doing, but also we're all humans, and if anyone else is put in that situation, when you feel more pressure, then do you necessarily perform as well?
So there's obviously a clear split within your group, batters and bowlers. How are you managing individuals, but individuals in a small group, and then the groups within a bigger team?
So in any squad, and I think this is true of an individual sport or a team sport, you've got, and it doesn't matter about the ages really, but I'll use cricket as an example. But you've got your young guys coming in, either they come from an academy setup or development setup, and it's their first year or their second year on the squad. And then you've got your old guys that they're on their last year, or maybe they'll get one more year after this point. And then you've got your guys that are in the squad because they work harder than anyone else, and they've actually exceeded their talent just by working hard and grafting. And then you've always got 1 or 2 kind of linchpins in your squad. Sometimes they're a bit maverick, but they can pull the whole dressing room up or down. They can pull the whole squad up or down. Their behaviour can change quite a bit. So the mistake I think sometimes is made is that people put the young guys with the old guys, because there's a scene, well, look, these guys have had a long career, whether it's swimming and they're 24, 25, or whether it's cricket and they're 34. It doesn't really matter. It's that they put the young guys with the old guys and say, right, you can learn from these guys, you can, look how they've done. But the trajectory that the older guys have taken is completely different to what the young guys now will take. They'll be on a completely different path because things just evolve. And also, no matter what they're saying publicly, the older guys are always got one eye kind of on the future of what happens next. So I think the critical thing is to get the young guys with the hard workers, with the grafters, and teach them about how to maximise their talent by, showing up every day and being as professional as possible. And then from a man management point of view, you don't worry about the old guys too much. They know what to do because they've been successful before you got there, and they found a way to already know how to stay in the game or the sport. So if you focus your man management on the one or two linchpins, and then you just ensure that the young guys are working hard, then you're going to cover most of the bases.
So how are you? Obviously in a management role as a head role, how do you fit into the overall kind of management structure?
So we're pretty good actually. We've got a quite tight knit support staff. We've got 3 coaches, head of sports science, medicine, head physio, and then we just got guys that come and support second team physio, chiro, psych, psychiatrist. And then we just bring people in and out, my assistant, the interns, and then we bring just people in and out as we need. So our overall top management group is pretty tight, and in the winter we spend a lot of time together kind of trying to evolve it into what we want it to be. And we're pretty good at working together. And I think with a small squad you have to do that we don't really tend to work in silos. Often I'll be helping out a fielding coach during a drill, or they might be helping me out as part of the warm-up. It's just all hands on deck as much as possible, and then that way you get to understand what each other does and what's the best way to manage it. And then in the season, it's just about trying not to get caught out, and so hopefully there's not too many catastrophes. And then if someone does get injured or someone isn't going well, then there's a clear consensus of what the plan's going to be moving forward.
So you're obviously collecting data on these guys through the in season. How are you relaying that data back to coaches, and how much input can you have with regards to, okay, this guy's done too much or he's not doing enough? How is that taken from your technical staff?
It depends how much they want them to play.
Okay, yeah, of course.
I think the biggest thing is that when I start, if I go one step back from that and we go look at some of the winter training, when I joined the club, there was a perception and perhaps a bit of reality that there was a lot of data collected in the winter, but it wasn't used very quickly, and a lot of it just wasn't used at all. And the players felt that they were in for a long time and not doing very much work. So one of the things that we tried to do was, any monitoring data that we had on the players, any testing data on the players, if we couldn't use it effectively in 20 minutes to inform how you'd go into the next training session or the next skill session, or it would inform practice over the next couple of weeks, then we weren't interested. I think the data has to be used. And then the other thing is that in the summer and the winter, what data we do collect has to start a conversation, and if you can start the right conversation with the right data, then you're going to create awareness and understanding and a more informed decision, whether that's a playing selection or it's a return to play or whatever it happens to be. I think the other important thing with the data is you have to understand who you're explaining the data to. If you've got a coach, a technical coach, and I'm not being specific here on the sport, but if you've got a technical coach that's become a professional athlete or elite athlete at 15, 16, 17 years old, and they've lasted 15 years, well, their academic level is probably still that of a 15, 16-year-old, and they've just picked up bits and pieces along the way. So you've got to think about how you're going to explain the data to them versus someone that's spent the last 5 or 6 years in education. I think also with the players need to, athletes need to have the data explained to them, in the right way. Some of the guys are not number based at all. They're very visual, so you've got to make it as simple and as visual as possible. And I know the guys, they understand the numbers and they're actually really intrigued by the data, and so therefore you explain it in a different way. So it's about looking at the right information and not getting too complicated. What's going to be your biggest bang for buck? Okay, this is the data that we're backing. It's going to be the right thing for our squad at this time because of these reasons. Then this is how we're going to use it. Okay, and then this is how we're going to communicate it.
So what got binned, Dave, if you don't mind me asking? Did anything specific get binned because it just wasn't producing the...
Generally, we had an honours board, and some of the tests on the board, the guys that were very near the top or at the top of the honours board that year all got released out of their contracts. So yes, they had some good physical numbers, but they weren't necessarily impacted on performance, or there wasn't a direct correlation between performance and physical. And with cricket, because it's a high skill sport, there's not going to be a direct correlation. It's like sprint cycling, but it is going to be there is going to be some carryover, and the more that we can control that and make sure that we're getting the right information. So, do we want our guys to be quick? Yes. Do we want our acceleration to be good? Yes. But do we want them to be robust enough that they can do it for 6 hours? Well, there's two very challenging factors, isn't there? One's pure speed, and the other one's body robustness, whether that's a tissue quality or a tendon quality or anything else in between. So it's about choosing the right test for the right people and then using the data effectively.
So just going back to... Go on, mate, sorry. We're going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say on our return to play protocol, I think that was what, if you want a good example of how and it's still an evolving project, don't get me wrong, we still don't get it right all the time, and we're still thinking of better ways to do it. But with our return to play, and this is more longer term stuff, rather than a three week or 10-day injury, you're pretty much going to just pick up as soon as you can. But if you got, say, 3 months or 4 months out, and you need to get this player back, then what I did was I went to the coaches first and said, look, if it's a hand injury, what sort of fielding drills do you want them to see with tennis balls, with, in between balls, with cricket balls? Okay, with this player, this is the position they're most likely to field. What sort of drills they're going to go through? What's the volume of that? So, because coaches have been returning athletes to play for years, it's just that they've got some other people involved in it now. So it's like, okay, what is good enough that then you think, do you know what, that player's ready to go back into the second team, ready to go back in the first team? What's important? Okay, if they're batting, if they're bowling, if they're, what do you want them to see? How much volume do you want them to do of each exercise? Okay, brilliant. I've got that criteria. Then I know what my physical markers are going to be from a conditioning point of view, from a strength point of view, and so on. And then the physios will clearly have their own criteria of return to play. But then if you put that all in one big list and you have a yes, no next to everything, then actually you might have 2 of the strength and conditioning boxes ticked off, 3 of the physio boxes ticked off, 2 of the coaching fielding drills, and 1 of the coaching batting drills done so far. And the player can look at that, the athlete can look at it, the coach can look at that, and everyone else can look at it and go, actually, this is where I'm at. I need to do this physically, I need to do this fielding, and I need to do this, still with the physio. And that way, everyone's effectively working on the same program at the same criteria, and you can bring all these qualities on simultaneously. But the critical factor is it's determined and led by the skills work first, so then they see the value in it.
Mm-hmm. Right, very good. So just going back on to what I was going to say before about your fast bowlers, and obviously them being the hardest to manage.
Yep.
How are you actually managing them?
So we this year we've got a step further, and we've got if match overs, how much volume they're doing is easy because it's the data is available straight away from our analyst. But the tricky one to nail down is the practice overs, especially when they're playing second team or you're in the gym and they're doing some additional work with a skills coach. So we created an app where they could very quickly fill in how much workload they've done that day, and that all goes into a database, and then we can then take from that and create a very simple but effective graph that shows each player's workload over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, 7 days rolling, 10 days rolling, 3 weeks. And we've got criteria for each of those stages that what is considered, based partly on the research, of which there is now quite a good volume, that if this player bowls this many more, their rate of injury risk increases. So then we can say to the coaches, actually, if you play this player in this game and the next game, this is the impact on their numbers, and this might, increase the risk and so on. And also, the other risk is actually undercooking the bowlers. If for whatever reason they haven't been selected or they haven't been playing very much, if they're undercooked, then that risk of injury becomes quite high because their workload suddenly spikes during a game, and then they're not prepared for it. So it's kind of trying to keep them, pretty much Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, somewhere in the middle, and the closer you can keep them to that, the better. So that's the first thing. And then when they do have the opportunities to get work done, you can base it on that data. But again, it's just using, okay, this is the data, it's really important, this is the reason why, this is how we're going to use it.
And how receptive, say it's your best fast bowler, and he's in the kind of red zone for injuries. You've got a big semi-final coming up like you have. How receptive a coach is to what you're saying, or are they just, he's our best guy, get out of the way, he's playing?
Oh no, definitely. There's a definite recognition that we need to look after our resource, and we'll take it into consideration. And sometimes when you because that's professional sports, sometimes you're always slightly on the edge, and that's where you need to be. You need to be pushing as hard as possible without quite going over the edge. And sometimes they'll say, okay, we'll take that on board, but actually, we need to play them in this game for this reasons, but then afterwards we'll make sure that their workload comes down, or we will we'll recognise that and we'll rotate the players as required. And I don't think you ever get ideal in professional sport. You don't get in any sport. I've been in some other sports as well where I've just thought, wow, that was so challenging, and we got away with it, or that was so high risk, and actually it didn't pay off in the end. And you're always pushing as hard as you can because everyone else is pushing as hard as you can. But it's just the critical thing, I think, is that you've got to have a wagon, because at least then you can get back on it. Mm-hmm. If you haven't got the wagon, then you've got no hope at all. You're just guessing. So I think that as long as you've got a system in place and you're trying to improve your system as much as possible, then you've got a much better chance than if you haven't got any system.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Just one last thing before I let you go. Interns, is there a reason why you don't pay them? Is that just budget, or is that on purpose?
Well, I'm not sure what we'd be paying them for, because their skill level isn't at a level where they're going to be suitable for being paid in the role that they're doing. I try and squeeze as much as I can out of what we do is from a development point of view, but they're not it's just experience. And if you took the word internship out of it and you went back 7 or 8 years, and this is what coaches were doing, it was just work experience. And I'm still fortunate that opportunities come up where I get to work with the odd athlete here and there. As I was speaking to you earlier, I had a little bit of a look at an athlete this morning from another sport, and I didn't get paid anything at all for that, but there was an opportunity to help someone that has the potential to be very, very good, and they haven't got a great budget at the moment. And to be honest, I'm happy to do it anyway, because it's just testing my skills and making me think about things in a different way. So some of the best coaches are continuing to do voluntary work just because they want to continue developing themselves as a coach.
Interesting. So, last but not least, where can people keep in touch with what you've got going on? Social media, website?
So I guess Twitter's the main thing for me. Mine's at David C. Sutton. I try and use Twitter as filtered Google, because there's some pretty smart guys out there, smarter than me, that are posting some very useful information, and that allows me to kind of delve into some of the areas that I might be needing to be looking into. And then I try and be as helpful as possible, whether it's from a networking point of view or it's introducing people point of view. I'll probably send 5 emails a week where I've introduced one person to another person, just so it's helping them, develop in their career in coaching.
Cool. So who are your go-to guys on Twitter?
Oh, so many. You, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Don't lie to me, Dave. Don't lie to me.
Great content. It's great to see a podcast is so varied, and also how much work you're putting into it and the people that you're getting. I think everyone needs to have some people in their network that they can go to for a brutally honest conversation. For me, John Noonan's probably up there. Him and I will talk quite often. And sometimes you need that just to say to someone, look, I don't think you're on the right track here, and this is my reasons why. And that's okay, because sometimes you're not going to get it right. Who else? Joe Clubb, for sure. Spent some time down at Brighton a few months ago, and she's doing great work. Suki Hobson's another girl that's doing some very good work now with the Milwaukee Bucks, and she's always worth talking to about, especially some of the rehab, return to play stuff. She's excellent. I think these are I could go on. I'll probably do a tweet with some extra names to add. I think that's what I'll do. But I think that's a definite kind of coaches you should follow or something. But it's more about, okay, what are your interests? Okay, who's creating information about that? All right, okay, follow them. Be conscious with your following and follow up with what they're delivering, and make sure you have a little look around the areas that you're interested in and what other people are doing, and be willing to think that actually they might be doing a better job than you, or sometimes they're just doing a job that consolidates why you're doing something. I think the other thing as well is getting around and just visiting people. We love having people come up here and have a look at how we do things, and people are always welcome. And then, I try and get around and just visit other people. And again, that's the thing, that you're taking time out of your own schedule to. You don't have to do it, but
it's work experience, Dave.
It is work experience, because I'm going to go and. Suddenly I'm in a gym in another sport, and their coach goes, "Do you mind spotting that athlete? Or can you just grab those bags? Or I'll go and help someone pick up some cones," because that's part of it. But you're having that conversation at the same time, and you're talking about sport.
I think that's valuable, getting out and about. Like I'm sure you've done a million times, and I've tried to do my best. Sometimes you get thrown under a bus by a bald guy that lives in Manchester, but that's just how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not mentioning name, Darren Roberts.
No, definitely not.
Well, cool. 45 minutes now, so I'll let you go. But thanks for fitting me into your extremely busy schedule. And this will go out after the game. But good luck next week.
Thank you very much. I think it's to be going to finals day twice in 3 years is really exciting, especially the squad size that we've got, and hopefully we can do it again and bring another trophy home.
Absolutely. Well, good luck with that, and we'll keep in touch.
Brilliant. I appreciate your time, Rob.
Okay, mate. Thanks, mate. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to episode 49 of the Pacey Performance Podcast. Don't forget that all links and the discount code for the push band are over at paceyperformance.co.uk/49. You can also check out all previous episodes of the podcast at paceyperformance.co.uk/podcast. Really look forward to bringing you episode 50 next week, so keep tuned, and thanks for listening.